to the NFL, where the tensions were mile high between Sean Payton and quarterback Bo Nix. Nix and Payton fiery after a potential TD pass to fellow rookie Troy Franklin was dropped, with the two having to be separated by teammates. Sean talked about it after the game.
It's part of the deal. Listen, last year, all of a sudden, it's just, there's still a little bit of Ferris Bueller in this player that we got to get rid of. All right, talking about Bo, and I love him to death. And so sometimes it's my love language.
Shay, coming to you on this, what's your reaction to this situation and the Ferris Bueller reference? That threw me off.
Yeah, but here's the thing with a love language, Stephen. My therapist used to say, hey, if you speak in Mandarin Chinese and she's speaking Spanish, y'all not on the same level. You're not communicating. Sean, you have to understand, you can't coach you treat everybody fair, but you don't treat everybody the same. You can't coach everybody the same. I understood. That's maybe how you coach Drew Brees. But this might not be the way that you could communicate and get through a Bo Nix. And I think the great thing about coaches is that they understand each player isn't unique, and let me find a way that I can get inside of him and pull the best out of him. That might not be the way, because you can see guys are starting to buck. They're trying to bow up, because that's a man, Stephen A. This is not college. You know, in college, coaches curse players and say certain things. That's an 18, 19-year-old that's trying to get to the next level. When you're in the NFL, Bo Nix is a grown man. He's a 24-year-old, and some men have wives. They have kids. They're not going to let you talk to them less than. So, Sean, just be careful. I understand that you're a fiery coach and you want to get your point across, but everybody's not going to be receptive to your style of coaching, and you just need to understand that.
Well, I get where you're coming from, Shay, and I don't think that you're wrong in what you're expressing. I just don't think it's applicable here. The person I saw doing most of the talking was Bo Nix. And what caught my eye was not that Sean Payton was yelling in his face and he came back. What came to me is that he was getting in Sean Payton's face and challenging Sean Payton on what Sean Payton was saying. And what I loved about it, I ain't no shade of Bo Nix, I loved it, because it showed his fire. It showed that fire in his belly. Remember, last year we were wishing, Russell Wilson, why are you standing there and just letting Sean Payton jump on you like that and saying literally nothing? You're a Super Bowl champion. Some people looked at you and said you got the potential to make the Hall of Fame. You went to back-to-back Super Bowls, etc. You've been in the players' field. And look, Russell Wilson said absolutely, positively nothing. Bo Nix is like, nah, I'm not having that. And here's why. And it wasn't like he didn't even come across as disrespectful. He came across as somebody that was showing he disagreed with what the coach was saying and was standing up by talking about something football-wise. And that.
Okay, I want to talk about this because this whole back and forth is starting to get a little goofy to me, quite frankly. We love taking these isolated exchanges as something that means something so profound, or it's a big indicator of something. And if it's a recurring theme and a recurring trend, then sure, right? Absolutely. If they're constantly fighting on the sidelines, it's a problem. But the reality is your teammates, your coach, your players, whatever it may be, you spend so much time together, and emotions and adrenaline and energy and all of this runs so high. The stakes run so high that the volume is just cranked up, that you're going to have moments like this, right? You're going to have moments when you're yelling, when you're screaming, when you're emotional, when you're carrying back and forth, right? It matters so much. In fact, what's worse when you're looking at a team, right? A team that's completely dejected, that has no emotions, and they're all just kind of vacant and kind of looking off into the distance, which we see a lot. We see that with a lot of teams, with players and teams who are losing, right? They're all just sitting on the bench and they're defeated. They're all just, kind of looking off and not a lot's going on, right? And the teams that often win, granted, you don't want them to be yelling, but at least there's interaction, there's connection, there's emotion, we're trying to do something here. And we all believe in it. That's why it matters to us. That's why we have the emotional response. I mean, it's just, if you ever been in a relationship with someone when you know you're going to be breaking up with them, you just know it's over, you no longer have that emotional response. You're just like, sure, whatever you say, right? Like you're just numb to it. Or if you're at a job and you know you're going to be quitting soon, or if you already did quit, you give your 2 weeks notice or whatever, and you just like the people around you no longer have any power because just it doesn't matter. Right? When things matter, you get emotional responses. So I like that you're seeing that fire out of Nix. And Ray, I kind of agree with ironically, what Stephen A is saying here in terms of like, it was Bo Nix that was getting all fired up. And Sean Payton was actually dealing it. He did awesome. He wasn't like, how dare you talk to me like that? Get over here, son. Like, it wasn't like that at all. He was kind of like, trying to be like, hey, it's all good, calm down. And then like Bo Nix kind of left because an assistant coach kind of took him, and then he now went to his other assistant coach and like pointed. I don't know what the issue was, what it was, but like it wasn't this big blown up issue. Yeah, if these moments are happening come time like the playoffs or something, I think that's when it could be a little bit problematic because there's so much going on. Like I did think it was a problem when Travis Kelce connected with Andy Reid, even though that obviously worked out fine. I do think that was a problem because there's too much going on in the Super Bowl. The stakes are too high, and of course you're gonna boil on. But also when you're like screaming in the face of your coach and you're colliding with him, like things can go too far from my viewpoint. But this was just not one of those. Again, if it happens now next game, I would be like, all right, does this guy kind of have like an attitude problem, and then it happens again, then I would be concerned. But these things are going to happen to a degree. And a lot of times you rather see a quarterback show more emotion than no emotion. But it is a delicate balance. It absolutely is a delicate balance. I favor the more stoic type of people, the people who are even keeled. But in this situation, I really do not mind it. I really, really don't. And so this doesn't have to be like, turning into this whole thing of, that there's a problem or that there's a problem with Payton or whatever, whoever they're trying to like connect the problem to. Because I just don't see this being such a bad thing. I think Bo Nix played great. I've already talked about that in a previous video. I think the Broncos are starting to connect the dots a little bit. Same thing with Bo Nix. And quite frankly, this is what Drew Brees said about Bo Nix. That was his advice to Bo Nix. Like, don't be afraid to stand up for yourself and kind of, speak your mind and advocate for yourself with Sean Payton, that he wants it and respects it, right? That it needs to be a two-way street. You can't just take it. And that was the perfect example of when you saw Russell Wilson, and I actually talked about this definitely when Drew Brees first came out about that, where it was just like he was vacant. He was checked out. And like nobody wants to be with that. Right? Like, again, especially this is another great example of this is with kids. If anyone has any interactions with little kids, and maybe it's like an emotional moment, maybe I don't want to say you're yelling at them, but like, I don't know, you have to really like teach them, you have to tell them like, don't do this or whatever it may be. Like when the kid is just like not paying attention or vacant, it doesn't feel like any growth is occurring. But if they give pushback, depending on how old the kid is, if they give pushback and they're like, well, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do that. And it was like, yeah, well, now like it feels, that back and forth feels like you made progress, like that they understood where you're coming from and why you can't just, I don't know, walk down the street with, whatever. I can't think of a good example, but they understand it more seriously. Whereas, especially when they're real young and you're like, hey, don't do that. And they're just like, kind of looking around and not really paying attention, or it doesn't land for them. It doesn't register for them. They just think, oh, you're just a grown up and not being very nice. But once they reach a certain age where they can be like, well, what do you mean? And they can even challenge you back. You then challenge them back, and it goes back and forth. And then growth occurs. It's literally how you mature. It's the maturing process. This is the maturing process with Bo Nix. He is a rookie quarterback, which is essentially a child of the NFL, right? And it's just all part of it. And like I said, I think it's a good thing because it's more concerning for a quarterback at this stage of his career, in the very early of his career, to just if things aren't what he wants and he's just kind of vacant to it, that's more concerning to me than anything. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What did you guys think about this heated exchange on the sidelines? Are they going to need to have an intervention between Sean Payton and Bo Nix? I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.